I want to welcome you to Psychology 576, a seminar in organizational development. Um, this course is a completely online course, which means that it is very structured. It is separated into modules, one per week, with very specific due dates, all of which is completed online. There is no in-class portions of this class. Materials throughout the week will include various portions and various topics, and I'll be talking about that a little bit. I'm the instructor for this course. I'm Dr. Joel T. Nadler. Just a brief little bit about myself. I'm a tenured professor at SIUE and the director of our Industrial Organizational Psychology Master's Program, where I also teach this course to students that are pursuing an Industrial Organizational Master's degree. And the focus on organizational development, this is usually one of the last classes we actually teach our students going through, as it's a very large overview of the specific skills that are taught within our discipline. And why it's applicable to what you're studying and the degree that you're pursuing is that in this case, what it's really about is trying to look at organizations as a whole, trying to look at organizations from a structural viewpoint, and asking the questions of once we actually have information, once we have data, once we have information that we're wanting to make decisions on, how do we actually leverage that information into real change in the organization? And that usually involves not small single changes. It usually involves programmatic changes, structural changes. How does the organization structure itself? How does various departments or subsections of the organization communicate? How is promotions, training, and other decisions being done? And all of that kind of fits into the big title of organizational development. So when I talk about organizational development, I'm talking about basically the data-driven changing of an organization in a purposeful way through a structured intervention. And that's what we're going to cover in this class. In addition to being an academic and a professor, I also own my own consulting company where I've worked with many Fortune 500 companies doing organizational development, and I'll try to bring some of those examples into my actual audio lectures for this class. In addition, I've been this is my second career. I actually worked as a manager for a chain of retail stores prior to deciding that I wanted to further my education. So hopefully I'll bring that unique set of experiences to these lectures and be able to help you understand how to apply what we're going to cover in this class. So generally speaking, just course description, the way I've divided this course is into modules, and each module will focus on several topic areas and will include video slides, slides with my audio lecture attached to them, and those will be posted throughout the semester, the next 8 weeks. I should have the first weeks up before the class actually begins. Then the rest of them will come eventually as we move forward to the class, usually at least a week ahead of time. Additionally, there will be quizzes, discussions, and projects, and I'll talk about each one of those in turn. But I do really want to make it clear that the way I've structured this course is as much as I can like a traditional in-person class, which means there's a rolling system of certain things are due each week. Certain quizzes on those materials are actually due in a window of 48 hours each week. The discussions are set weekly, mainly to keep everyone on topic and everyone basically at the same level of understanding as we move through all this material. So some online courses are actually set up to where basically you can completely go at your own pace. You can start the course, and if you feel like just powering it out in a few days, that's possible. That is not possible with the way this course is set up. This course is set up to where you can do it at your pace to a certain degree. You can certainly get ahead of the reading materials, ahead of the lectures, but you're still being tied to a structural weekly module on the actual assessments and assignments. So the main course objectives are to utilize organizational development process to identify real-world problems. So organizational development is a way of looking at organizations in a very holistically broad manner and to actually ask bigger questions of where are the problems. And then how to create actual research projects to identify is the problem actually supported by data. So this is kind of the combination of we know there's a problem somewhere, where do we think it is, and now does the data support that that's actually where it's at. Then coming up with a rationale for a possible solution, creating a research-based rationale on that solution, so basically understanding how to look at the academic research on whatever problem you have in your organization. Let's say it's a communication problem or a leadership problem. What is the best practices out there of possible solutions, and how well have they worked in other organizations? And then to be able to develop the actual intervention and the methods used to determine if that intervention is actually being successful. There is a course textbook, and I highly suggest that you get an access to it. My lectures will supplement that textbook, but that textbook also then becomes, and you can get it rentally through SIUE, but I would actually suggest buying your own copy, especially if you think that you'll ever be in a position where you'll be doing organizational development, helping an organization look at its structures and consider changes, because having that book will be like a constant refresher of this course, as this course is structured upon the book's plan of going from step to step to step through this process. There will be additional readings available. Each discussion in this class is actually based on an academic research article on organizational development, and those articles are available for the link that you see here. So again, just to kind of go over the broad course requirements, everything that you need is either on Blackboard or linked to Blackboard. The readings are assigned on a weekly basis and are very complementary to the lectures. There will be a quiz at the end, basically somewhere towards the middle to end of each week, covering the material that was due that week. That would be both the lectures, the discussions generally, and the actual audio lectures, and of course the book readings. Just as a note, the quizzes are not timed other than the fact that they're available for a 48-hour, 2-day period. And once you open one, they are open book. You can use any resources you want to answer the quizzes. These quizzes are more about making sure that you're understanding the information and that you're able to process that information in a meaningful way. There will be a 4-part project. Basically, it's a case study kind of project where you can draw on your own experiences within the organization that you're currently at or organizations you've previously been. You can also draw from organizations that you've seen in various media if that makes better, but is easier for you. The idea, though, of the project is that you'll be actually creating a proposal of an organizational development intervention through the steps that we're talking about as we take this course. As this is an 8-week course and there's 4 parts, each project will be due approximately every other week. And as I mentioned, there will be a discussion board. Discussion boards are also weekly, so there will be 8 discussions, which is 8 academic research articles that you'll need to read. Your initial post in the discussion board will be your personal summary of the main points of the research article, and there will be details of this on the assignment itself in Blackboard, as well as how it applies to your organization and to your experiences. And then, once you've posted that, and not before, you'll be able to see other people's posts on that initial description of the article. And you'll need to actually comment on at least 2 others. And those comments shouldn't just be like, good job. It should be applying what you thought about the article to what they did. They can be respectful disagreements, but it can also be, hey, I see what you're saying here. Here's how I apply it in my organization. I think you've got a good idea, but have you considered this? It really should be a somewhat discussion-based response. There will be rubrics describing exactly what's expected on these discussions, and much like the quizzes, each one is posted weekly. There'll be due dates when we get down to the actual course structure itself and modules, and unlike the quizzes, though, you have 72 hours to both get up your initial response and your 2 follow-up responses. There's a little bit more information about writing discussions and also some information about course descriptions here. I'll use the announcement feature occasionally in Blackboard if an announcement needs to go to all students, though I'm much more likely to just use the email all function. The best way to get a hold of me is email. I will have virtual office hours, but honestly, most questions can be answered either through there will be an open discussion for class questions. I'll be checking that daily. You can also just directly email me, and I'll usually respond well within 24 hours. Generally note, all work needs to be submitted online via Blackboard. As far as grading, missed quizzes and discussions, information for what happens if you actually miss a discussion or quiz is listed here. As you have full knowledge of when they're due, and there is a solid window, 24 or 48 hours for the quizzes and 72 for the discussions, Not a lot of reason to miss them, but if you do have a major life event, definitely let me know. The grading criteria and the points are listed here, as well as also if you have an issue with any of the grading. Most grading should be done within 24 to 48 hours after the assignment is due. Obviously, the projects being a little more involved may take a little bit longer time. Feedback will also be presented through Blackboard with both a grading rubric and additional written comments by myself. Pretty much the only thing I have here, other than what I've already covered as far as feedback and grading timeline, is just some general tips for communication online. When you're writing in the discussions, try to be respectful, but also definitely sharing your own experiences and views. And also do keep in mind that a lot of times we're missing nonverbal cues when we're writing out communication discussions. And honestly, it is useful sometimes to be able to give people information about whether you're being sarcastic, whether you're trying to be funny. It can even be just a parentheses, being lighthearted. Just reread your discussions before posting, especially if you're disagreeing with someone, and making sure that your words are coming across in a way that you'd expect them to if you were giving the same information in person. Really, the only thing on this page is a bunch of information about the technological requirements of this class. The only thing I really want to say here is that if you have an issue finding something or getting something to load on Blackboard, I certainly don't mind you contacting me. Just recognize that many times, especially if it's a technical issue, I am probably just as novice a user with whatever function or problem is occurring as you are. We do have at SIUE a very active and helpful IT section, and they're the ones that actually oversee these classes technologically. So if there is a problem, you're halfway through loading and something locks up on you, you're probably going to get a better result talking directly to ITS, Instructional Technology Services, as they will probably have a much better idea of what happened and how to fix it. So here's the course schedule. As I said, it's broken up into 8 weeks. I'm not going to go through every week, but let me just go ahead and give an example of a week so you can kind of have an idea of how things are going to be playing out. I'm going to look at week 2. So week 2, the title of that module is Challenges to Change and Changing Cultures. So there's the readings, review chapters 2 and 3. So the readings for that week are chapters 2 and 3. There's modules 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4, and those will be presented both as passive slides, so basically just kind of checklists and high points from those chapter readings, but I'll also be posting an audio lecture over those slides in a separate set of slides that you can listen to, as well as YouTube links to a video of me actually doing the audio lectures. There will be a quiz. For each due date or each object, anything that's due during a particular module, there will be when it goes live and when it's due. So Module 2 quiz goes live on October 26th. So at 12:01 a.m. Central Time, that quiz will suddenly be available for you to take. And then it will stay live for 2 days, 48 hours, and it is due by October 27th at 11:59 p.m. There will also usually be some vocabulary term reviews. These are basically just main terms from the chapter. Consider them like a little mini study guide before the quiz. The project is due, so the very first part of the project is due in week 2. So every other week a project will be due. And again, it will say when it's live. Generally, the projects go live right after the last one is due. So Project 1 actually goes live as the class starts on October 16th. It's due on October 25th at 11:59. I should make a quick note here, and this is important, that the quizzes and the discussions, when they go offline, they are offline. So past the due date, they will no longer be available for you to interact with. They basically have a hard due date. The projects, you can turn them in late at a penalty that's listed earlier in the syllabus. So usually after the due date, they will not immediately disappear. Just recognize that past the due date, if you turn in an assignment, it will be worth less points. And that's again just for the projects. There's also a discussion for week 2. In this case, it goes live the 24th, so the discussions usually are going to go live earlier than the quizzes. And again, it's available for 72 hours, so you have to make sure you've done your initial post and your 2 follow-ups by October 26th at 11:59 p.m. And for each discussion, the article that you need to read and summarize will also be listed in the description here. So if you're on Blackboard, when you click on week 2, you'll find the links to all of this information, the quiz, the discussion, where you turn the project in, the link to actually getting the article that you need to read for the discussion, as well as all the quizzes. So that's just an example. Again, I went through week 2. The structure is pretty much the same on all the additional weeks. And as far as this part of the syllabus, we just continue week 6, 7, and 8. Another important thing to note is during week 8, there is kind of a hard cutoff that the class actually ends on that Friday of that week, which I believe is December 15th in this case. So just be very much aware that all assignments are due. Anything that you are turning in a little bit late, anything that you were trying to get to me, and if you've done arranged any makeup work, all of that needs to be in by December 15th. Anything posted for any reason past December 15th, 11:59 p.m. will not be accepted and will not be graded. And this is primarily due to the fact that grades are due the next day effectively, and I need to get those up. The rest of the syllabus is basically just standard university policies, the psychology department's policy on plagiarism. I do suggest that you take a moment to take a look through this and maybe check out some of the links. This is considered a graduate course. Graduate courses do tend to have a higher expectation that you are not plagiarizing material. So if you are doing an article review and a discussion, make sure that you are not cut and pasting directly from the article. Make sure you're using your own words. If there's a really relevant passage that you think is interesting, you can directly cite it, but make sure it's in quotation marks and make sure that you properly cite it. Likewise, in your projects, make sure anytime you're referring to someone else's findings or work that you are giving due credit and citation. Generally, APA style is what's acceptable in this class, though I'm not necessarily grading many points on specific style, but do make sure that you are using a system for citation to avoid a charge of plagiarism, which is a more serious charge in a graduate class than an undergraduate class. Just some more information about the psychology department, our general writing policy, accessibility issues. Again, all of this is just for your information. No real reason at this point for me to go through. If you have any questions about this part of the syllabus, please reach out to me and let me know. And finally, wrapping up with just some additional support for online classes. There is the Writing Center through Academic Services and Support. So you are writing for portions of a project in this class. You're writing discussions. If you have any issues with writing the actual structure of writing, not the content from the course, but actually how to write well, that's definitely a resource that is willing to help you with your writing. If you need access on campus to computer labs, there's information here. The library, of course, is also available. If you're having a problem downloading any of the articles that you need for discussion, that's actually being hosted through Lovejoy Library here at SIUE. So they would be the good place to start with if you were having an issue there, because again, that's probably going to be a technical issue that I'm not sure I'll be able to help you with. And finally, just a big reminder that technical support is always available for SIUE's online classes, and if there are technical problems with this class, please start there. I really don't want to sound like I'm trying to tell you not to talk to me. If you've got a problem, let me know. Just recognize that my specialty is industrial organizational psychology and organizational development, which is why I'm teaching this class. It is not necessarily the inner workings of Blackboard and how various technical glitches can cause problems. So hopefully this has given you some general information on the syllabus and helped you understand the course better. And at this point, I would suggest you start exploring the rest of Blackboard and specifically taking a look at the modules, especially Module 1, which will be hopefully where you start next.